Welcome to everyone to the continuation of our Hawaii Civil Rights Commission meeting that began on February 13th. And so click this OK button. Since this is a continuation of the previous meeting, we'll be just continuing along with the previous agenda. There is no new agenda. All of the things that were dealt with and voted on at the last meeting, at the first half of this set, are done, and we do not need to revisit them or take votes again. We're going to just pick up where we left off on this agenda. I would introduce people if I saw anybody new, but I don't see anybody new, so I'm not going to go through the introductions again then. So with that, let us return to the agenda where we left off under the section 5, discussion on legislation. And I would ask I would recognize our executive director, okay, to continue and pick up with our next piece of legislation.
Right. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to start sharing. Okay. So we have 6 bills left to discuss. We started discussing House Bill 468, but then did not conclude that. So we'll start there. Excuse me. So I'm going to be, this is a list of the bills remaining. So 468 through HB 1096. And I'm going to go to the text of 468. Oops, let's see. Oh, we don't want that. Okay. And I made some notations to help us along here. So to summarize again, 468, this is a bill that has to do with transportation network companies such as Uber, Lyft, etc. So fairly recently, there was legislation 279J, which established some rules for these companies, which are relatively new overall, right, in society. So they had some provisions such as establishing non-discrimination policies, what to do if there's a complaint. And so what this bill does is to specify that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission will receive the complaints of unfair discriminatory practices, unfair discriminatory treatment of riders by transportation network company drivers under this particular section. And it is done in accordance with the procedures established under Chapter 368, which is a statute that we enforce. So, I don't really have an issue with what is provided here, as long as it is in accordance with the procedures established under Chapter 368. Because the types of complaints they're talking about here would be complaints of discrimination in places of public accommodation that we would take anyway. So people could do it now if they wanted to. And so as long as the procedures are done, again, in accordance with Chapter 368, I think it's fine. One issue that is of concern is this Section B here, which was added on in the most recent draft, which says that the Civil Rights Commission shall complete their investigation and respond to the complaint within blank days after receiving a complaint. The suggestion would be for us to have that removed, because Chapter 368 already provides for procedures, including timelines and deadlines for investigating complaints. So I think that we should, say that if we're going to take in these complaints, we would go with our established procedures. And then further down, the bill would have the Civil Rights Commission report on violations under this bill, under this section. So reporting the results of the investigation of a complaint to the Department of Transportation, and then the Department of Transportation would issue penalties based on that. I don't have any comment with regard to what the Department of Transportation would do. The only suggestion I would have is that, again, that the reporting of information be subject to Chapter 368, which our investigations are subject to already. And so that would limit some of the disclosures of information. And so that's really what I have. So the staff suggestion would be support the bill with comments.
Okay, so we'll take up as the pending question, the staff recommendation that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission support House Bill 468 with comments and, or should I say with reservations or something else, or with recommendations? Oops, I can't hear you.
There we go. I muted myself. Um, with recommendations, I think would be the most accurate description of the position.
Okay, well, let's move with that unless there are any objections. The pending question is to support House Bill 468 with the staff recommendations. And is there any debate? Hearing no debate, are there any objections to adopting that recommendation? That Hawaii Civil Rights Commission support House Bill 468 with the staff recommendations. Okay, I hear no objections. Therefore, um, that endorsement, as I just read aloud, is adopted, and we will be Hawaii Civil Rights Commission shall support House Bill 468 with the staff recommendations as outlined here, or whatever, just with the staff recommendations.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Moving along to House Bill 615. This is a long one. Okay, and I will attempt to summarize what the bill is attempting to do. So there's an addition to HRS 583A, and this is specifying that, and this all has to do with gender affirming healthcare services. So this addition states that a law from another state, which would authorize a state agency to remove a child from a parent or guardian based on the parent or guardian allowing that child to receive gender affirming healthcare services, shall be against the public policy of this state, Hawaii, and shall not be enforced or applied in a case pending in a court in this state. Okay, so essentially, if there were some person from another state and that state has a law saying something about if a parent allows or the guardian allows their child to receive gender affirming healthcare services, then there's some sort of crime penalty, etc. That would not be enforced within our state. So that's the backdrop for this. So that's one addition to that this bill would add. And then going further down, so there's definitions, for example, definitions of gender affirming healthcare services. So, medically necessary healthcare as well as mental health care. I'm going to scroll down, so don't get dizzy here, but I'm going to scroll down to the pertinent part. Okay, I'm sorry, further up. So what this is doing is there's laws on the books already concerning reproductive healthcare services. And so this bill would add gender affirming healthcare services under that heading. So it would be reproductive healthcare services and gender affirming healthcare services. And then because it's long, I'm going to summarize. So what this section does is it prohibits certain things. So it prohibits certain disclosure of information by entities performing both reproductive healthcare services and adding on gender affirming healthcare services. So disclosure of information It would prohibit state agencies from providing information or expending resources relating to the types of laws that I talked about up front, which would be laws from other states dealing with their, position towards gender affirming healthcare services. It would prohibit the state of Hawaii from taking action to penalize or prosecute people from either engaging in these services or, making decisions based on these to engage in making decisions either for themselves to engage in these services or people to assist in that. And it also would prohibit a parent or guardian's decision to have their child, engage in gender affirming healthcare services, to have that be a factor in child custody determinations. Okay, so that in a nutshell is what this bill is proposing. We at the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission on the staff level feel that this is important and timely, and that we think our laws clearly and strongly protect gender identity, gender expression, and we just would be in strong support of this bill on its whole. So that would be our support, our position.
Very good. So the question is, based on the staff recommendation, that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission support House Bill 615 relating to health care. So is there any debate? I'm not hearing any debate.
I think Joanne was speaking, but she was on mute.
Sorry, yeah, I was muted.
Oh.
Was it support or strong support, Marcus?
The recommendation of the committee, he said strong support. Do you want our motion to say strongly support? Joanne?
Yes, I would like to agree with the staff on this.
All right. So, fine. If there's no objection, I will, the pending question shall be amended to read that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission strongly support House Bill 615 relating to healthcare. Hearing no objection to that amendment, is there any further debate? Okay. If there is no further debate, is there any objection to the motion that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission strongly support House Bill 615 relating to health care? And hearing no objection, the motion is adopted, and the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission strongly will be on record now as strongly supporting House Bill 615 relating to health care.
Great, thank you. All right, we're moving along here. Actually, let me go to the other document. House Bill 620 relating to education. I'm not sure we even need to look at the text here. This is a good summary. So this bill would establish a state policy to promote Braille literacy for eligible blind students. It would require the individualized education programs and Section 504 plans of eligible blind students to include the assessment and evaluation of eligible blind students' reading and writing abilities, instruction of Braille, and provision of Braille instructional materials under certain circumstances. It would require the Department of Education to establish a Braille Literacy Resource Center and it would appropriate funds for this purpose. We feel that this is a very good bill. It would expand the ability of persons with disabilities in the realm of education, and so we strongly support.
Okay, it's the staff recommendation that Hawaii Civil Rights Commission strongly support House Bill 620 relating to education. And therefore, the pending question is that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission shall strongly support House Bill 620 relating to education. Is there any debate? Hearing no debate, is there any objection to the motion that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission strongly support House Bill 620 relating to education? There being no objection, the motion is adopted.
Thank you. We have next House Bill 728. And this is proposing a constitutional amendment to the state constitution to protect the right to reproductive freedom. Let's see, H 728. Okay. It's not long. This is the bill in its entirety. So essentially, so the state shall not deny or interfere with individuals' reproductive freedom in their most intimate decisions, including, so right to obtain an abortion, or to use contraceptives. And so this bill is adding this question to be added to the ballot for a constitutional amendment. And our staff would strongly support.
Okay, so it's the recommendation of the staff that the commission strongly support House Bill 728, proposing a constitutional amendment to actually the Hawaii Constitution to protect the right of reproductive freedom. Is there any debate?
I only have one consideration. I do strongly support this bill, and that is in the concurrence to the Dobbs decision, Justice Thomas hinted strongly that he in his mind, he would go after any bills based on privacy, of which reproduction was one. And I guess mostly I just want those comments on the record. I believe that Hawaii Constitution has a right to privacy, and I don't know whether this bill should include language that basically incorporates the fact that we believe in the right to privacy to set the stage for what will be later onslaughts to any other case that was decided based on based on privacy, which I believe includes interest in contraception, and I know includes same-sex marriage.
So you are therefore proposing an amendment to our staff recommendation or to the Civil Rights Commission support for this?
If I were going to make a change, it would just be with the amendment to a reference to privacy, but I don't feel strongly about that. I just mostly wanted to sound off and get my feelings on the record, because this is the tip of the iceberg, frankly.
Sure. We cannot amend this proposed bill. We can recommend, that in addition to our support, that language be added.
If
So
I
that
could
would-
jump in when the time is right, Chair.
Yes, please. No, go ahead.
This is Heather McVeigh. I would just note that luckily and gratefully, we do already have a right to privacy in our Hawaii state constitution. So happy to announce that's Article 1, Section 6. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all I'm trying to establish now is what shall be the language of our motion to strongly, I believe it was strongly support House Bill 728. Do we want to say, do you want to add something else, with the addition of language referring to the right to privacy?
That would be my preference.
All right, so that is a proposed amendment to our motion to support. Okay, and is there any objection to adding that into our motion to strongly support? Hearing no objection, then we will.
Sorry, I trying to get myself off of mute. I'm a little unclear on what the motion would
Well,
say.
the motion, first of all, is to support, I understand, and let's clarify it now. So
Yeah.
the motion is to strongly support House Bill 728. And so
Yep.
what
Understand
Commissioner
that part.
uh, Adams
What's the amendment to it,
think
though? That's my
is
question.
to add with the addition of language in, so we're strongly supporting the bill with the addition of language. Is it referring to or
Yeah, I would say referring to Hawaii's constitutional right to privacy.
okay. So let that language with the addition of language.
With the addition, I'm just not quite sure how that's gonna look. So you, in this section, so it says reproductive freedom and right to privacy or something like that, or is that,
Yeah,
or?
remember, we're not adding language to this bill.
Yeah, but we're making a recommendation, aren't
Yeah.
we?
Yes.
And what is the recommendation? That's
And
my
the
question.
recommendation, I think, is that when we testify, we want to say that we would like to see language referencing the state's privacy right.
I'm not sure that it's necessary, given that it's already in the Constitution. So I guess I would object then. I strongly support the language, but I'm just not quite sure, given it's not quite sure it's necessary or how it's gonna look if you add something on the privacy issue.
Or recommend that something be added.
Yeah, I don't know what the recommendation, I'm still not clear on the recommendation, so for that reason, I would object to the changing the staff recommendation.
Is there any further debate on that amendment being proposed by Commissioner Adams to adding, with reference to the state constitutional privacy?
Hi,
Because-
this is Heather again. I could just add that we can definitely craft a testimony that highlights, the fact that Hawaii finds that to be a really important value and, make it clear that our support of this bill is also based on Hawaii's express right to privacy.
Without this amendment. So I'm just
Yeah,
trying to.
in explaining our support rather than a recommendation to change the language, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
suggestion.
I would
think
be
that
okay with that. I would be okay with that.
And I am in agreement with that as well. That's
Yeah.
perfectly sufficient for me.
Okay. So instead of saying with the language, supporting this House bill with the addition of language, we're not going to say with the addition of language. Okay, we're going to say with testimony that now yeah, I really hate having to write language off the top of my head like that. So the proposers, Ms. Case, can you help me out? Because what words are we going to add into our support?
I personally am willing to just trust that Heather will do it and just drop back to strongly support as far as the commission stance. And then Heather hopefully will then follow through. I just trust that she will.
Okay, are you okay with that too, Arsima? Yeah. Okay, in which case, we're just gonna trust, but we won't put this into the motion that we're adopting, which is to strongly support House Bill 728. Right? I say the right bill number? Yes.
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 Bill 728. All right, and is there any further debate on the motion to strongly support House Bill 728? Since there's no further debate, is there any objection to the motion to strongly support House Bill 728? And since there's no objection, that motion is adopted.
All right, thank you. Next, we have House Bill 831 relating to antitrust. In summary, it prohibits the use of algorithmic price setting in Hawaii's rental market. It would require the Department of the Attorney General to develop and undertake a public education program regarding the prohibition. So looking at the text of the law itself, I guess I didn't realize this was that specific an issue, but what I've highlighted here is that the legislature is finding that regional national data indicates that landlords of residential and rental housing are using property management software to collude and raise residential housing prices. So there's apparently some software and it uses an algorithm and that could result in price fixing. And so as a result, competition decreases and rental prices typically increase. So I think that where this interfaces with the Civil Rights Commission is our interest in algorithmic decision-making that may have a discriminatory effect on certain groups. And so for that reason, the staff recommendation would be to support this bill. So again, it deals with a prohibition of using this kind of software for this purpose. And then also it would require the Department of the Attorney General to develop and undertake some kind of public education program. So staff would support this measure.
Very good. So the recommendation of staff is to support House Bill 831 relating to antitrust. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing no discussion or debate, is there any objection to the Hawaii Civil Rights, the motion that the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission support House Bill 831 relating to antitrust? Hearing no objection, that motion is adopted.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, we have House Bill 1096 relating to tenant selection. Okay, so this would repeal the tenant selection preferences for disabled veterans and their spouses, the spouses of deceased veterans, in the state low-income housing program. So initially, I mean, I was like, well, this doesn't sound like a great idea, but when I looked at it further, what this concerns is, so the state low-income housing, public housing program, this bill is intending to make state law consistent with federal public housing requirements and also allow the Public Housing Authority to select tenants upon the basis of those in greatest need for that particular segment of housing. And so I'm gonna move over to the testimony that was submitted by the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. So they explain in a bit more detail that they're not wanting to get rid of entirely preferences or support for veterans and their spouses. But they're stating that this low-income housing program benefits these classes here. So families earning less than 30% of the area median income, individuals with disabilities, elderly residents on fixed incomes, as well as veterans in need of housing assistance. So what they're really asking for is to get rid of a fixed requirement that a certain percentage of this housing be reserved for these veterans or their spouses of deceased veterans. And they have the ability to, at any point in time, use their discretion to assign the housing to those that have the greatest need. And so because we're talking about individuals with disabilities, also elderly residents, these are within the realm of what we enforce in terms of our anti-discrimination laws. And so staff would support this measure.
Very good. So the question then is, shall the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission support House Bill 1096, right, relating to tenant
Yes.
selection? Is there any debate?
Yeah, okay, so the point is to get rid of like a fixed number, so technically they could go over. Is that right? Or like if they would fall within veterans in need of housing assistance. And if there's a lot of veterans applying, they're not bound by like a limited number that they can only, is that what it is? I'm trying to understand.
Well, I don't think it's a limited number. I think they need to
Oh.
reserve at least a certain percentage.
At
I'm trying
least,
to find it.
okay.
Yeah, for presently for veterans. But what Hawaii Public Housing Authority is saying is like there are actually other programs that benefit veterans anyway. So there are multiple
Okay.
ways that veterans can be supported. But having this specific minimum percentage that have to go to veterans for this low income program is affecting their ability to really get the
Okay.
housing to those that are in most need. That's what they're saying.
Okay, well, I don't know enough about the area, but I'm gonna trust that they're saying what they're saying makes sense. Okay, okay.
Would the veterans be subject to the same criteria as other groups in qualifying for low-income housing? Or just by virtue of being a veteran, they would qualify?
I don't know for sure, but I'm gleaning from the testimony that they, by virtue of being veterans, would qualify.
So this doesn't entirely remove veterans as a category. So it just mixes, doesn't designate, am I correct about that? So if a veteran is applying and also meets the other criteria, that would be something that the housing authority would take into consideration. Yes, this
Yes,
person
correct.
falls under this category, that category, and is a veteran in need of assistance. It just would sort of take away the requirement that they may be given us some kind of priority.
Correct. Yes.
I'm just curious. So prior to this bill proposal, a veteran of, let's say, moderate income would get priority over other groups of lower income,
Moderate or higher.
moderate or higher.
You know, I can't speak with authority to that question. And I am somewhat trusting that what the head of the Hawaii Public Housing Authority is saying is accurate and correct. So I can only say that what they're saying here is that there is, for example, the Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing Program, which I know does exist, which is strictly geared towards veterans. And that I'll just read from here. It says, currently tenant selection preferences for the state low-income housing program are codified in statute, making it difficult to adjust policies in response to evolving housing needs. So this bill will not eliminate housing assistance for veterans or their spouses, but instead ensures that preferences can be managed through HPHA's administrative rules, just as they are in all other state and federal housing programs we administer. So it is in this testimony, framing it as a way to sort of get this particular state program in line with every other state program they have, and in line with the federal housing programs as well.
Okay. If there are no further questions or if there's no further debate, are you ready for the question? And the question is, shall the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission support House Bill 10, am I at the right place? No, yes.
Yep.
Give me the
Yes,
number.
1096.
1096. Okay, thank you. Right. So is there any objection? Very good. So since there's no objection, the motion is adopted and the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission supports House Bill 1096. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we're concluded with discussing the bills.
Great. Okay. So we don't have a meeting scheduled after this. Is there any sense to doing that at this time, or shall we await the pleasure?
I'd like to say that I belong to a group that's LGBTQ plus that's is looking or wondering if the commission's going to make a stance on what's coming out of Washington. And so if we were to take that up at the next meeting, if there is a desire to do that, then I think it should be probably sooner rather than later, given the rapidity with which changes are coming out of Washington.
Right. So if we're going to have a meeting to do that, I would strongly recommend that we have some language to look at. So.
Yeah, and I would also like to know if there's any limitations on our ability to make public comments like that. That we're a state agency, the head of the state already made a statement. I don't know. Are we within our authority to do so? Or are we able to do so? Just so as just a matter of are we allowed to?
Is that a question for staff?
Well, if we're gonna put
Yes.
that on the, yeah, if we're gonna put that as a agenda item, I would like to know the answer to that. Yes. I think that would be,
Doesn't the website include past positions taken by the commissioner? Am I incorrect?
Yeah, I mean, I as a general statement, I think that there may be some things that we want to run by the director of DLIR or, Attorney General, but I think that we as a state agency, and we are only administratively attached to the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. I mean, I do think that we have the ability to issue press releases, make statements, provide comment. So that's generally within our purview.
I would think that a policy statement in answer to Arsima's question, it would depend on how broad the policy statement is. So, yeah, if it was so broad that it was like the Civil Rights Commission opposes everything that Donald Trump is proposing to do now and forevermore, that's too broad, obviously. So that would not, I don't believe, be appropriate to our agency taking a position. Although personally, I agree. But if there was it, I think that's why we need some language to look at that is based on what the Civil Rights Commission mission is and what we do with respect to civil rights in the face of any kind of attempt to scale back civil rights at the federal level. And so so I can see that happening. I've 3 times this week seen email that I get from this different HR or employer group that's saying it looks like the state's civil rights commissions are going to have to take up the slack because the EEOC, the federal EEOC, is being scaled back, and I think what I also recall hearing was that all those people were fired. So specifically to stop them from taking any cases at the federal level. So what I'm hearing is it looks like we're going to have to step up to that. So if it's a policy that is complaining about, or that is taking a position against scaling back the federal civil rights commissions that are, subject to enforcement by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, that strikes me to be is within our scope. That's a reasonable policy. It deals with what we do. And but I think that will require some reading or some writing, and I would charge Joanne, who is the proposer, to try to draft a proposal.
I would be happy to do that. And just for context, so people know why I got the hair up me bum, as they would say, is they were concerned that behaviors on the UH Manoa campus implied that they were already taking down things as if they were self-censoring. So I'm thinking we don't have to necessarily say we hate everything the feds are doing. I think just even a statement that says we are here and we will continue to be here. This is our mission and we will fulfill it, would be kind of the line or the tack that I would take in drafting something. And so that's the direction which I would go, I think. And I would be more than happy now or in subsequent communications to get input from other people as to what they think should be in that kind of a statement.
Well, my recommendation as your chair is that you compose such a desired policy, and
Okay.
then we will set a meeting date,
Okay,
take it up. All right. So do that first, send it
All right.
over, and then we can get input from the staff and the DLIR if necessary, and then we can properly announce it. It'll be noticed, and we'll take it up.
okay,
I'd also, Joanne, based on what you just said, if you have, situations that you could report to us about, like what UH is doing,
mhm,
that would be helpful as well. People are just running scared because they fear losing federal funds. And so they'll do whatever they feel they need to do. And so it's important to kind of have a context for understanding this.
Right. Okay. So let that be the position we're with now, which means we will not set a date for our next meeting. Let's get the proposal from Commissioner Adams, and then we will we'll work on setting a date.
okay.
All right.
And then I may in turn enlist Marcus and some of the staff to kind of, because I'm so new in particular, to help make sure I get pointed in the right direction.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, that being the case, and there are no further announcements, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.